the provisions of Standing Orders 24-6. The thanks of this House be recorded for the exposition of public policy contained in the address of His Excellency the President, delivered in Parliament on Thursday, 20th November 2025, and further that this House notes the following reports submitted by His Excellency the President in fulfillment of the provisions of Articles 132(1)(c) and 247 of the Constitution laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 25th November 2025. Honorable Speaker, as the motion says, Honorable Speaker, the State of the Nation address is an annual obligation by the President, a constitutional obligation that the President is obligated by the Constitution, our 2010 Constitution, under Articles 132(1)(c) and 247, to at least once every year address the nation through in Parliament, or address the nation through their elected representatives of the people, and submit also reports on the measures that the government or the executive has taken and progress achieved in the realization of our national values and principles of governance. Two, to also report on progress made in fulfilling the international obligations of the Republic of Kenya. And three, to report to Parliament on the state of our national security. And indeed, Honorable Speaker, many members will agree with me that the President's address last Thursday afternoon was not just any other ordinary address, but it was an update to the nation through the elected representatives and through our live transmission to the rest of the country on where our country was in terms of fulfillment of our international obligations, including our debt repayment, because those are also part of our international obligations. And the President, as he said, when he addressed the House in his first State of the Nation address as President, following the 2022 general elections, he said he had a vision to sell to the people of Kenya. But he came back now in his third address with a story to Kenyans, a story of resilience, a story of how we have stabilized our country amidst a very uncertain and a world full of uncertainty in terms of economic management of around the globe, of countries around the globe. And a story, Honorable Speaker, of how far we have come through periods of drought in this country where people had no food. A story of where we had come back in 2022 when the country had no fuel and Kenyans had to queue along roads leading to fuel stations trying to access fuel. And it's not because there was no fuel being produced in the world, but because it was impossible to get foreign exchange or get dollars to be able to purchase crude oil or even refined oil for use by the country. Honorable Speaker, it's sad that within the region and around the world, there are countries that still are in that state. But the President had a story to tell on how we work together as Kenyans to resolve the issues and the problems that we had then, to ensure that we not only have a stable foreign exchange. At a time, the dollar was trading at a high of almost 162 to 167, to now stabilize to the region of 128 to 129 within a very short period, Honorable Speaker, is indeed a story of resilience and the commitment that we have walked. That, Honorable Speaker, amidst the economic pressure that was there back in 2022, the global uncertainty following the COVID-19 pandemic and the global supply chain challenges that followed the COVID-19 pandemic around the world, that amidst all these challenges, Honorable Speaker, we have had a very steady rebuilding of our nation, Honorable Speaker. And in his address, Honorable Speaker, this address, Honorable Speaker, as I said, was not just pursuant to a constitutional obligation or the President fulfilling his constitutional mandate, but it was a profound articulation of resilience. The resilience not just of his administration, but the people of Kenya. The resilience that have seen us walk through, as I said, periods of drought, periods of global economic uncertainty and economic pressures in a way that our nation has emerged stronger. And you remember the president expounding how much many people and many pundits and many skeptics expected that our own economy would not survive beyond 6 months after the 2022 elections. Indeed, Honorable Speaker, it is said there is a leader who convened a meeting in somewhere in Ongata, Rongai, or around Rongai, political leader, and prophesied that there would be an election in Kenya in a period not exceeding 6 months, because this country was going to collapse and the economy was going to collapse. And indeed, that is a dire situation that we were in. You remember, even as clueless as the former deputy president was, during the handover of government, at least he had to say it, that we have found empty coffers. As much as today he lies otherwise. But he said it as it was then, that the coffers were not just empty, they were completely empty. And you heard the president expound how in 2022 our foreign exchange reserves had fallen to the lowest they had ever fallen since the founding of our nation. And today, almost doubled the reserves that we had. That we have been able to stabilize our foreign exchange, Honorable Speaker, to the region of 128, 129. That amidst all those economic pressures and the global uncertainties that were there, Honorable Speaker, with peers in our region and across Africa defaulting on their public debt obligations, Kenya stood firm, and we continue to meet our public debt obligations, even with difficulty, but we meet our public debt obligations, Honorable Speaker. And this story, Honorable Speaker, of resilience, this story of a responsible administration that is focused on not only achieving our national ambitions, is also a story that was told of where our country is and where it is moving towards, Honorable Speaker. And I keenly listened to His Excellency the President, Honorable Speaker, and I must thank him because he did appreciate the role that Parliament and parliamentarians in the 13th Assembly have played in ensuring that we maintain our nation as a steady nation in an otherwise volatile region, an uncertain global economy, and the huge responsibility that have been bestowed on members of Parliament in both houses, Honorable Speaker, because there are many bills that we have processed that have had to be processed through both houses. And in acknowledging the role that this Parliament has played, Honorable Speaker, that we have been bold to make the right decisions at the right time, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, when the President spoke here about the high priests of pessimism, Honorable Speaker, it doesn't mean that they will not always be there. They will always be there. There will be high priests of eternal pessimism. We will have high priests also of eternal lies, and we know them. And we also have high priests of eternal negativity, Honorable Speaker. And when the President commended the 13th Parliament for our boldness and our courage to confront the challenges of our times, Honorable Speaker, it was a very emotional time for me because I couldn't help but remember the events of the year 2024 and the unfortunate incidents around the finance bill of June 2024. Honorable Speaker, because I am always very truthful. I have always told Kenyans that they were lied to. And because lies always travel faster than the truth, it is said, Honorable Speaker, by the time the truth wakes up, the lies have traveled half the world, I'm told.
Actually, the correct phrase is that before the truth starts tying its shoelaces, the lie has traveled halfway around the world.
Before the truth wakes up, the lie has traveled half the globe. And indeed, that is the situation we found ourselves in, Honorable Speaker. That by the time we were going out to tell the Kenyan people the truth of the provisions of the Finance Bill of 2024, the lies had completely whitewashed the truth. I had an incident this Sunday, Honorable Speaker, where a young man from Kino approached me on Sunday after church. And I showed him messages he had sent me during that period, and he had come to me for help. And I asked him, tell me what was your problem with the Finance Bill 2024. He could not articulate a single thing. He only told me I was opposed to the 18% increase of VAT. I went to the bill, I told him, please show me where that 18% VAT was being increased. And he couldn't find it. But that is the tragedy of misinformation and disinformation that our country suffers today. And I'm saying this, Honorable Speaker, because these members suffered insults, were vilified for taking bold steps to do what was right. And I remember saying on this podium, Honorable Speaker, that it is not necessarily true that what is popular is right. And not all that is right is popular. But this parliament chose to do what was right for our country, and that is why today we have that story that the president was speaking to, a story of resilience, a story of faith in our country, a story of sacrifice, huge sacrifices by the people of Kenya, by farmers in Kenya, Honorable Speaker, who today are feeding our nation and reducing the burden of our foreign exchange that we have to cough out to buy food or to import food, be it maize that our farmers are producing, be it those farmers who are producing sugar for us along the sugar belts of Western Kenya, Nyanza, and the coast region of our country, Honorable Speaker, that this story of resilience and sacrifice is a story that permeates in every household across our country, Honorable Speaker. And that is not to say we are there yet, Honorable Speaker. And the President did allude to that fact, that we are not yet there, that we must continue to make bold and courageous decisions to move our nation forward, Honorable Speaker. That, as he has always said, it is indeed true that it is possible within our lifetime to be able to transition this country and our economy from a third world country to a first world country, Honorable Speaker. And at least it's good I had, Honorable Speaker, over the weekend, those who have no agenda, those who have no policies to expound to the people of Kenya, those who speak boldly in funerals over the weekends, Honorable Speaker, at least had content this weekend. But I was waiting to hear, since the President has intent and the will and the determination to move our country from being a third world to a first world country, and he clearly stipulated what we need to do and called on us as the House of Representatives to work with him and work with the Kenyan people as we move our country from the third to the first world, Honorable Speaker. And he was clear in his plan, Honorable Speaker, including the setting up of the infrastructure fund and how we will innovatively fund that infrastructure fund to be able to leverage on it to raise more capital to roll out development projects that will indeed transition our country from a third to a first world, whether it is in the provision of water, for irrigation, to ensure that we are producing adequate food for our country and even be able to export food from our country, whether it is in the rollout of dual carriage roads whether it's from Rironi to Mau Summit, from Marua all the way to Nanyuki, Isiolo, whether it is the Mai Mahiu road to enable those people who are going to Narok, like the Honorable Rebecca Tongei, to be able to commute from Narok to Nairobi in record time, and be able to move goods and services around our country, Honorable Speaker. That speech, Honorable Speaker, you could tell the clarity of mind that the president has on what he intends to do and what he's calling on us as a country to work with him and work with each other shoulder by shoulder to achieve. But the high priests of eternal pessimism, Honorable Speaker, in funerals and other social gatherings around the weekend, around the country, well, they are saying, oh, we cannot move the country to a third world, from a third world economy to a first world economy. And they have no idea on what needs to be done. How I wish these high priests of eternal pessimism, as shameless as they are, Honorable Speaker, they would at least give an alternative ideas on what needs to be done. Because it is easier to speak and critique or criticize, but it is better to criticize and offer an alternative. And indeed, those in the opposition, Honorable Speaker, you pride yourselves that you are the government in waiting. You cannot be a government in waiting by just shouting